for you and your particular short-term investments, do you manage them yourself?
I definitely have a team
Yep.
because I think when you have a business, we have our own profession, right? We work hard for it. We go to school for years and supervision and internship, like thousands of years of clinical work for you to get where you are. So having a business is something more of that you can sustain that position, but not to worry about like earning more. So I feel like that sustainability piece can only be provided if you have your team along the way, and being able to delegate work.
Welcome to the Real Estate Mogul MD podcast. Thanks for tuning in and taking control of your financial future. This is a show where we not only motivate and inspire, we give you actionable, real-world experience to help you live life by design. You'll hear journeys and stories from other physicians, investors, coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, Brett Riggins. Hey, if you're like me, there's probably a lot of things going on in your head, lots of questions, thoughts, just this constant push to be a better person, be a better investor, be a better father, be a better husband. There's so much to what causes us to take action, to not take action, to get over fear, to let fear hold us back. What's making us feel trapped? Why are we not being a good partner in a relationship? Real estate is the business of relationships. This is really important. Today's conversation, I love it. We're going to talk with someone who talks a lot about this kind of help, really helping people, a trauma specialist, psychotherapist, and relationship expert who has herself made a journey as a woman immigrant into the United States and is investing in real estate, has her own private practice. Wow, we're going to talk about this. Everybody, please welcome Zeynep Cifci to the show. All right, we are here back again for another episode of the Real Estate Mogul MD, and I have a very special guest here today, and we're going to talk about a few things that kind of may keep us from getting into real estate or may be the reason why we do so well in real estate. And it's all coming down to what's happening inside of our mind. So I am excited to welcome today's guest and break this down. And let's get right into it. Zeynep, thank you for your time and welcome to the show.
Hey, Brett. Thank you so much for inviting me, taking the time and arranging that meeting. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so I'm really excited, and just tell the listeners just a little bit about your background, and kind of where you're at now, and we're going to tiptoe into real estate and get a little mix of where your background blends with our direction in real estate.
I hope that we can tie into it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think my journey is quite a ride. Coming from Turkey, I'm originally from Turkey. An immigrant, moved to United States. I think since moving to US, I have seen a lot of opportunities in this country. This is the country of opportunities. At the same time, I think my heart was more into service, serving other people. That's why I just started, being more involved in psychology and human behavior. Actually, initially, I started my major as an architect major. I always had interest in making things more beautiful than how I find them. That's kind of my goal as well. Like with buildings, with people at times, definitely based on what they fit into and how their culture or background allows them to. It's more like a customized rather than one fits for all, which is actually I'm very interested in, like customized way of treating things. So architecture is really my passion. But over the years, I realized that architecture and psychology can go actually hand in hand, because we do our occupation selections based on some of our like actually passion and our background stories from childhood stories at times too. So it seemed like a little interesting for me that we choose why we choose what we do. So I feel like what you're doing in real estate and helping out people probably is very much tied into like covering a huge need, because a lot of times I think us as clinicians, we really don't know too much about real estate or investment or like money management. They don't teach any of that in school. So that was something I struggled myself, because I got into University of Houston, psychology major, I double major, and then graduate school, and I started working for an organization. But people liked my job so much that parents started asking me if I had a private practice. So it was kind of a push for me to open a private practice because there were so much requests. So then when you get into private practice, you have to learn some sort of business planning, business strategies, and you have no idea about it. And I think that's like probably the biggest, gap that us, professionals, that we don't have any idea. So I kind of had to learn, like try and error. And sometimes you don't have that much, lifespan, right? Our lifespan is very short to do try and error. At times you just want to do and then don't make any error. You just want to try and do the right thing, do the right thing. So I think as a woman, as an immigrant woman, and as a Muslim woman, I'm Muslim, as a Muslim, I have struggled so much in that trial and error process. I think I have gone through like, quite a bit of like my own struggles in that process. And then later on, I realized, and definitely some research as well, the real estate is as risky as it looks. It's actually one of the safest investments. In a way, I kind of felt like I'm being pushed there again. Because a lot of times, I think in my life, what I have seen is like you have a call, and then you just have to take that call. Otherwise, you're going to miss that call, right? So I think even my journey with real estate has started with that kind of a call as well. And so from the professional, field to moving to real estate, I feel like that was somewhat, I was led into it. And I'm still like trying to find my in that field, actually.
Your niche, your little lane, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, double major, you went into probably a W-2 position, and you now have a private practice, and you are a trauma clinician and a relationship therapist, right? And I have to mention your Instagram channel. You've got 134,000 followers on your Instagram channel. Congratulations. I know I said that earlier. That's so exciting. But the piece of that I wanted to tie...
Brett. Thank you. Appreciate
absolutely.
it.
The piece that I want to tie into that is that same thing that drove you from working for somebody else to working for yourself, is that drive, presenting, giving so much of what you're doing is you're giving. And that's what you're doing on the Instagram channel too. So it all ties in, right? And I think that's a great spot. So everybody can find you on Instagram, psychology _ Zeynep, and that's ZEYNEP. So psychology _ Zeynep. And they can actually, there's a lot of Turkish on there, right? So what part of your followers are Turkish speaking versus English speaking?
So Brad, that's a great question. I know with some of the content you probably had some understanding, or maybe you did some translation. Yes, I do give a lot of information, a lot of valuable content to my audience. I think you probably do that too with that whole podcast and informing and improving education and awareness on people into making like real estate investments. I think that's an amazing service area. So my journey with social media has started during COVID time, actually, because at COVID, a lot of people just got stuck at home. And it was that urge inside of me where I was like, I need to do something. I was working full time at an organization at the time, but I was like, I have to do something so that people would feel that, you know, someone is out there to support them. Because my native language is Turkish, so it just seemed more convenient to me. That's how I started.
Yeah.
And then it took off because I think when you feel something and you passionately feel it and you struggle for it, then actually you see like-minded people out there and they're like, yeah, exactly, that's what we were looking for. That's what, you know, we were needing for. And then, you know, word of mouth, I think it just like continued to grow that way. It's kind of how my YouTube channel also started, because in Instagram, you can only share so much in the you know, like those 1 minute videos, and you know, it's not too much information that you can share. But on YouTube, it's like an academy where you can just share more knowledge base, more specified to need, like niche kind of, you know, information. So that's kind of my YouTube journey has started from there on. But really, mental health stigma, especially in immigrant population, is where I kind of started to feel like we need to unstuck ourselves, because I feel a lot of people are so stuck, even though they're like extremely intelligent, smart, educated, especially if you're moving from one country to a host country, you feel like you don't belong to that country. You don't know the system, you don't know the language, you don't know anything about what to do. You feel like nothing almost. You were somebody in your own country, but you become nobody in this new host country. So I think my goal was also try to empower those people and make them feel like, yeah, your presence matters here.
Yeah.
So there's a huge population, not only Turkish population, but there's a huge minority, immigrant, marginalized population. I think that's kind of where I'm really, you know, appealing to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's very interesting, that perspective. And I mean, I've traveled, definitely been in countries where I can't read anything. I can't see anything. I go to the grocery store. I have no idea how much things cost. So I can barely understand what that feels like when you immigrate to a new place and you're here for, you know, this is your new home. So that's definitely a challenge. But funny enough, I want to turn this and relate this to those of us who are working so hard um in our professions and feel stuck in that same way because we're trading time for money. And so many of us stuck in like in a W-2 position will have those same feelings of feeling stuck, feeling like a nobody, watching your colleagues who may be driving a better car or have a big home and really need that help to carry and push you into that next piece where you're investing in something that creates wealth. Tell us a little bit about your real estate experience so far.
So upon having my own private practice, things started going well. And then your income increases. And you have to find other ways to make investments, but also be able to serve people. So I think anytime I initiate some sort of business, let's say, I do have a very intentional approach, which is, okay, how am I going to serve other people with this business? So that's actually how it started off. I purchased a real estate, a single family house, and then like rent it out for long term. And then later on, it became more like the long term was somewhat very regular, very I guess medium kind of a way that was not, I guess, volatile enough for me in a way where I'm like, needing to include my own aspects into it. So I got involved into short-term leasing. So with the short-term leasing, things become a little bit more active, and people really need that short-term leasing, houses, residences. rather than like, I guess, like nowadays more than hotel, a lot of people are coming together as a family. So I kind of find a little bit space for myself in that area, and I liked it. The hospitality, I think every business has their own characteristic way of presenting themselves. So I kind of feel like that's matching with my personality, my way of handling things, and also making people happy at the end of the day, and providing them that they had a pleasant experience, in the short term lease that I provide for them. I don't know if that answers your question. It's more like a
100%. Yeah,
personality, but business at the same time as
absolutely.
well.
So that starting in the long-term piece where you've acquired a single-family residential and you've kind of pivoted into short-term, uh, which is probably Airbnb, VRBO, that kind of stuff. And there's short-term and then there's mid-term. But that direction, I like that because it aligns. And I say this a lot, where you want to pick a path that aligns with your goals and who you are. So sometimes, just that long-term piece where there's not a lot of involvement, really, if you've got a good tenant and a good property, especially if you're in property management, you're not going to see that. You're not going to have any interaction with them. And if your drive or your passion is more along the lines of that hospitality piece, that's going to fit better with the short-term rental piece. So picking a path in real estate definitely depends on that it aligns with who you are and what you want to provide. So sometimes, well, a lot of times I'll mention three C's: control, commitment, and capital. Those three things is kind of what drives the path as well too. So if I can fit those three C's in, and I say I have the commitment piece, if I have time to do the short term and it aligns with me wanting to provide more of a service for somebody, then that fits well. But if I'm in, say, I'm a clinician and I'm in clinic all the time, and I don't have the time to do a short term, then I've got to find different solutions to make that work. For you and your particular short term investments, do you manage them yourself?
I definitely have a team
Yep.
because I think when you have a business, we have our own profession, right? We work hard for it. We go to school for years and supervision and internship, like thousands of years of clinical work for you to get where you are. So having a business is something more of that you can sustain that position, but not to worry about like earning more. So I feel like that sustainability piece can only be provided if you have your team along the way, and being able to delegate work. Yeah, I like the control and commitment. I do agree with like that's the 3C, but sometimes that the control, I guess delegating has to shift for me at this point for my way of handling things, delegating things, because let's say that you have like 100% effort, and then you hire like two people, even though those two people have like 50% the effort that you will provide, you still have 100% effort of yourself, and you still keep your 100% effort to something else that you want to do. So I think having to do a business kind of help to learn to be able to delegate as something mandatory again, because I feel like when I get into something, some kind of a business or something that is like, beyond my comfort zone, you don't go back. You just have to like keep pushing and then be uncomfortable. Just don't tap out and just like keep pushing. And then that's how kind of you, I guess, break your rigid points and become a little bit more flexible and bendable. So I think control piece and like delegating is somewhat has shifted meaning along the way for me in that experience.
So we were today spending some time out here in the yard. We were moving a fence. So we acquired this property. It's actually from a physician. It was a doctor that lived here. But anyway, we're moving the fence, and and my son is 11, and these fence posts are, like concreted in, and that idea of not tapping out, and he completely dug one of these posts out by himself. And there are multiple times in that journey you just want to, it just feels like there's no end. It just keeps going, and it's so hard. But that's it. Don't tap out. Don't tap out. Keep going. Keep finding yourself in those positions where you're uncomfortable, because that pain is where growth is. And that's so important. And the way that you relate that to business, like your business, I hear you talking about your business as a clinician and relating that to now your business in real estate, being able to kind of traverse what you've learned in business as a clinician into the real estate piece. Really cool. A couple of books I thought of when you were talking there was E-Myth is a great book. I think it's Michael Gerber. E-Myth is a great way to keep that mindset of becoming an entrepreneur as opposed to a technician, and being able to create these systems or machines that are able to work without you. So that was one E-Myth. And then Traction is always a great business book. That one's by Gino Wickman, is a great book as well, too, to kind of keep that business mindset and just make sure that you create a machine that's driving for you. The control piece that you were talking about is very interesting. You relate it to delegating tasks in that entrepreneur perspective. The control piece, in my mind, I'll break it down a little bit further to where it's when you have a short term or a long term, it's a single family residential property. You have 100% equity in that property. You have 100% control in that property. When you step away and you remove yourself from that control and you do things like limited partnerships where you're in a syndication, you probably have heard of these before. You may have done some before. Guess what? I don't have any control. So that's the other end of the spectrum, to where I'm a silent partner. My money goes in, and I can't say when that property sells or what's going on with the operations of that property. So I have no control in that property. So the limited partner is on one end of the spectrum, and then the single family residential active investing is on the other end of the spectrum when it comes to control. But each one, when you have more control, then you have more ability to delegate then as well too. You can just pull the final switch, right? You can push the final button, say sell, change the color, don't rent to that person. That's the type of control in those situations. What was the biggest fear for you, or the limiting mindset that you had when you moved into, hey, I've got this, I call them bubbles of capital that these other things are creating. What was the biggest fear or limiting mindset that you had, Zeynep, that limited or kept you from, or potentially slowed you down from getting into real estate sooner?
I would say your meaning making about money. I think money can mean different things for different people, and understanding that definition and realizing that if that is still true or not. I think there might be like some background information, how you define money, whether what I mean background, gender versus occupation, some family dynamics, so I think as a woman, as an immigrant woman, my understanding of money for a long time was safety. And then later on, like when I was talking with my clients, like understanding, like, the finances and the concepts of money, for some people, I realize it's power. That shift, right? Okay, like, safety. When you're having a safety mindset about money, then it's like you want to hoard the money. You don't want to invest the money. You don't want to, like, delegate anything. You're very rigid with the money, right? But when you have that power dynamic, it becomes a little bit more like you are able to delegate, or you are able to hire people, or you are able to, include yourself in a management. I actually still don't know how you're, like, sponsoring or organizing clinicians or physicians. I think you're like, you're like, responding to a big need. But a lot of times with those professions, because they're so much learning life almost in school, money a lot of times may not come from a perspective of an entrepreneurial, way of understanding money. So I think that shift was a very big challenge for me. Yeah.
You say that another book pops into my mind. Oh, I love books.
That's great. That's great. I'm taking
Yeah.
notes actually. Yeah. Go ahead.
The Seven Primal Questions was this book. I don't know who the author was of this one. Let me see if we can find it on the old Google. There it is. Mike Foster is the author of that one, Seven Primal Questions. And when you talked about safety, security, control, these things sounded very similar to me of that Seven Primal Questions. And when I read that book, I took the quiz. My primal question was success, and I can definitely relate that to money, right? To me, if I'm creating a business, I'm going to call myself a serial entrepreneur. If I'm creating these machines, these systems, it's measured by the money that it can create or the people that it can help. That's something I'm learning and growing into. That means a lot to me because of this primal question piece. Because for me, Zeynep, this question, am I successful, can be what drives my actions, but it's also one of the things that's leading me or pulling me towards maybe something that I'm gifted at, and that's making sure that other people around me are successful. So, in the same way that you're helping people through the clinic, that's kind of like the same way that I love to do with this show, sharing information when these books pop into my mind, sharing these things, because now understanding that can also even trigger the things more than just money. It can trigger the way that I'm reacting or responding to certain things. If I don't feel successful, if my that question that's always going on in my brain, if it's not feeling like I'm right or I'm doing something that I should be doing, then all of a sudden I could get short with people. I could, get down on myself, feel trapped, all of this stuff, and keep me from making the decisions that I need to make. So I really love how that piece where for you it was safety and how that relates or limits us in the actions that we're taking. I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What were some of I guess, the business pieces when we talk about finances? The trouble with the business piece, we don't learn these things in school, and that goes for a lot of different professions. When I'm going to start a business, now we're going to talk about P&Ls and balance sheets, and I got to hire somebody, payroll, QuickBooks, all of this stuff. What were some of the biggest business challenges that you had that really picked up and translated well into real estate?
Well, it's still a challenge. It's still an ongoing challenge. And I don't know if I'm in anywhere position of having like figured out it all and
We never
being
will.
able
We
to.
never will.
So first of all, I don't think that I have probably like the 100% right, ways of answering that question. Because I have, a team who's handling certain dynamics for me. I go ahead and talk with my banker at times, or like, my accountant at times. The people who manages like, those places, or people who are the maintenance, of those places. I feel like I most of the time oversee how things have been handling and have been handled. But a lot of times you have to know what is going on, I think, from A to Z, but not necessarily do it yourself, but probably have some leverage of understanding to be able to oversee, to be able to see some of the dynamics from a bird view point. Where you can see some opportunities that they may not be, because when you're involved in something very closely, you are so much in it, right?
Yes.
And then you lose your sight and it becomes more narrow and like somewhat like tunnel vision. So I try to just like look at it from outside and like, try to have a bird view and also keep my knowledge updated because being in the hustle culture, I guess in the US, your agenda continuously changes every day. So I think like keeping that knowledge updated, listening to podcasts, reading to books, not only in business but in a lot of science area, really that's the way to go. Because when you repeat something for many times, actually we have a saying in our language, tekrar ahsen velev kâne 180, meaning if it needs to be, you have to repeat that same knowledge 80 times for
80.
you to at least,
Wow.
If it means it's 80 times, that means that you gotta like repeat it 80 times to get stuck in your head so that you would do it more reflexively, right? So I think it's a huge learning curve. So I'm nowhere near like, being able to answer that question, but I think it applies to everything. It applies to every type of science. And I feel like business is also a science as well. So having that, ability to learn and willing to learn and willing to oversee and I guess be uncomfortable again. And when times, become like that uncomfort becomes the need, you should be able to willing to, leave that comfort zone and be able to take risks. And a lot of times I think the unknown is the biggest challenge for so many people in terms of the business. And knowing data helps. Like I know, like, when you launch a business, you have a chance of like going bankrupt very much than like being successful, right? So knowing those data and like coming out of those, sometimes you probably need like coaches like you or like, people who would give you that, trial, but maybe less error piece. So I would definitely go do like those mentoring programs, like, rely on those like trustworthy organizations to reduce the risk as well.
You can talk about your team that helps you. And I just want to touch a little bit on the relationship piece, knowing that you have a background in relationships and how they work. And what are some key points that we could take as real estate investors? Because I've heard it said so many times, and I said it too, and maybe it's the 80 times that I need to say it to myself to make sure that it sticks. Real estate is the business of relationships. How can we as real estate investors leverage good relationships? Like, what is it that we can do to make sure that we are we are the ones that we would pick out and say, yeah, I want a relationship with them. I want to work with them, right? If we can make ourselves that way. But what is it that we should be, or who should we be, to make sure that we are, the platform for a good relationship?
Brett, I think I need to tell you that story to kind of give a better understanding. When I started doing therapy first time, I was very nervous, right? After the 3,000 hour where you become like, okay, you can be clinician now. You don't need to be an intern anymore. It was like, yeah, I did it. I'm successful. I've done an amazing job. And then later on, maybe after 5 years, I'm like, man, I didn't do a good job. Like now I'm better. Now I'm, way better than like, 3 years ago or 5 years ago. So I think when you're like, doing business or when you're, creating relationships with people in the perspective of business, active listening is something that I learned to be the most effective way of handling things in anything, really. Because, my 3,000 hours was probably very effective, but I was trying to prove myself how much knowledge, how much information that I knew, which probably was helpful in terms of like cognitive behavioral therapy, for example, like, appealing to your prefrontal cortex, that you probably need to convince people that you have enough knowledge, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of times people need to feel safe with you. And I think to be able to provide that sense of safety, you need to be able to actively listen to the person and really be aware what they're really telling. Because a lot of times we really know what we are needing, and there are clues here and there that sometimes we don't know the definition ourselves when we are explaining our stories. But you as the real estate agent, or me as the clinician, I need to pick up those clues, and having those dynamics of like clue picking. Okay, that's my client's need, and then bringing up a different picture, bringing up a vision that is more beautiful, creating a story that is more empowering is, I think, way to go in relationship dynamics.
That's awesome. And I think it was Zig Ziglar, but it was this saying that nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And showing somebody how much you care by being a good listener is really important. And I think that you do this a lot too. And when I'm talking with you, I can see it and I can hear it. And I have a tendency to do this as well too, you say something and I repeat it back to you. And that's kind of like that little bit of engagement where I am active listening. The cool part about that, Zeynep, is when I repeat that back, whether it's anything about being the clinician or the fears, the success. When I was talking about the security, the safety of money, like these little things that I say back. When I hear that, and also it activates my brain a little differently. And then you get to hear something that you say. And I think the conversation is just so much more engaging when you have active listening. And I agree with you 100%. That's such an important part about relationships. And that is more than just a relationship in real estate. It's a relationship in life with our husbands, with our wives, with our children, with our families. Being an active listener is so important. Absolutely. If you could go back, how am I doing as being an active listener?
Well, I think you have amazing therapeutic skills. I can say that.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
absolutely.
So if you could go back, say 10 years, and you were set beside somebody that may be on the similar path, whether it's on their way to being a clinician, or maybe they're thinking about architecture, um, and they're sitting beside you, and you were able to talk to this person 10 years ago, but you had the knowledge with you that you have today. So you're going back, you sat beside this person, similar path as you, not you. What would you tell them?
I would tell, be vigilant and be aware of your surrounding, because a lot of times opportunities are out there always, and we pass by some of them, we see them, but we don't pay attention to them. I guess just really being vigilant and being tender can come with a lot of opportunities presented to you. And your ability to receive can only be possible if you're in, I know I'm going to use some like therapeutic, I guess, terms now, but if you're in the flow, right? Like what you've been doing, right? You've been like listening to me, rephrasing some of the words that I've been doing. And I'm hearing what I have said to you, and I feel good about myself because I feel listened and I feel visible, right? And you also feel good because you feel like you heard what I said. That's kind of like both ways of win-win, right? I think a lot of times, like I come from a collectivist culture. Turkey is a very collectivist culture, and being in the United States, I learned how to be an individual. Individualism is an amazing thing, I see, but when it becomes a little bit more extreme, then it becomes selfishness, where you're like self-praising, self-gratifying creatures.
Yep.
And we actually like that after a while, and we don't care. We become very oblivious to the fact that there are other people out there that who also needs us, or who we need them, right? Sometimes. So I think that dynamic of, as if, experiencing life as if it's a tango dance. We use that term a lot in the relationship dynamics.
Yep.
It's like, it's an amazing art if you know how to do tango. But if you don't, then you hit someone's foot, then it's probably like one of the most devastating, kind of a dance, right? So I guess having a mentality of empowering but also keeping yourself strong as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that internal locus of control, that, yeah, I want to do something, I want to have that, having that mindset, having that vision, but at the same time, in the extent where I don't invade anybody's space.
Yeah.
And then growing together. I know saying that is a lot easier than, seeing that in the action, because we come a lot of background stories where we continuously confirm our biases so that we can stay in that comfort zone and don't have to leave that comfort zone and don't have to keep ourselves in that, I guess, that unknown. And unknown is, I guess, one of the most scariest thing, so being okay with unknown can sometimes be possible with a team. And in that team, yes, sometimes you need people to motivate you, but sometimes you need people to actually be honest, to show you who you really are,
Mm-hmm.
and not be scared to be honest with you, right?
Yep.
Because a lot of times with those protocols, we become a little bit like strategic at the cost of reducing the rate of trust or honesty. So I think being honest in the best way of communicating with that person, but at the same time keeping both agendas and the win-win transactional, I guess, level. And to be able to do that, I think we have to have daily intention of, yeah, I want to become better and bigger and stronger and successful and smarter. But I also want to help other people to do that, because that ability to give and receive can only be possible by me probably accumulating and then giving, so I can accumulate more and I can give more, right? Because if you cannot give, then you don't accumulate. You just become that hoarder that continuously obsess over certain things, and that flow doesn't happen. So I guess short way, I guess I can say flowing would be the way.
Yeah, flow, being vigilant, and even when you're getting in that flow, making sure that you have the ability to step back. And just like when you're working with your team, sometimes we have this tunnel vision when we're working on a task, but inside of that flow, being vigilant to step back, because self-realization is the foundation of growth. Understanding not what we may look like doing something, but understanding who we're becoming, and maybe these things that are limiting us along the way, but ultimately finding this path so that we can grow together. Because we have to be intentional, and I say this a lot too. The ability to build wealth, it happens simultaneously with our ability to give. It's so fascinating, these two worlds that collide when you look at, like you said, some people want to just collect and hoard, but it's the ones where we grow, where we can grow together, is so important. And that what you said about being nice and growing with each other, and it is a beautiful place I close my eyes and it just makes me happy just thinking about being there. If we could take that back to that person 10 years ago and just put it simply: be vigilant, keep growing, stay in the flow, but don't get stuck in the flow, because sometimes you get short-sighted when you're in the flow. I'm so excited about this conversation, but I'm also excited about your book coming out, right? This book, let's see, it's called Walking Alone, right? That's
Walking alone.
so
Yeah.
exciting, and it's coming out. We're recording this here in the beginning of September, so we're out maybe a month. It's in
Yes.
October.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
so exciting. So
Yes.
congratulations. The
Thank you
listeners,
so
I'm
much.
sure, can find this. I'm sure you'll have stuff on your Instagram. We'll have all of this in the description as well too. Wow, so cool speaking with you. Thank you so much for your time, Zeynep.
Well, thank you so much for, hosting me in here. And thank you for doing that. I think that's an amazing service area. I appreciate the, conversation with you as well. So yeah, my book is coming out in October 2024, Walking Alone, Healing Without Labels. So I think my goal in this book is creating that cumulative way of understanding human beings' behaviors, and also helping them in a very customized way, really. My needs might be different than someone else's needs. Your needs might be different. I think it can be applicable in business world too. Yes, a lot of things applies to a lot of us, through heuristics, right? We just do things like through certain categorizations. But those fine details are very holistic, and can only be understood in, certain people's needs, paying attention to those needs, and really just bringing that out, and then having their own storyline. I'm sure that you probably have that portfolio for your people that you're working with, right? It's kind of creating a portfolio of okay, those are my way of understanding life. Those are my traumas. Those are how I can get out of it, how I can unstuck myself from it. So I'm so excited that the launch of this book is going to be amazing, hopefully. Because it's bringing Eastern and Western philosophies together. Because in Eastern philosophy, there's a lot of ancient wisdom. In the Western philosophy, there's a lot of empirical research. So we're very excited. Me and my team is very excited to bring that book and hopefully present to the people.
Yes, yes. Congratulations again on that. Thank you for your time here today. And to the listeners, thank you for your time. Obviously, without your attention, the time doesn't really have a lot of value. So your attention, given that here to us today, giving us a listen. Hopefully today you'll be able to absorb some of this stuff and then reflect it, put it into action, be an active listener. It just helps you grow as a person. It helps other people around you grow, and surround yourself with the right people. That's just really important, because those are the people that are going to help you grow as well too. You get certain situations where maybe somebody's not honest, somebody's not helping you grow. They're just telling you what they may want you to hear. That's trouble. There's something called the Johara's window. We didn't talk about it here. I don't know a lot about it, but those 4 panes of that window are super important. That's why it's so important to have the right people around you. This is the Real Estate Mogul MD. We'll see you next time. Wrapped up. How was it?
Oh, you were great. Thank you so much for really tying things into the way that would be helpful, because I had a hard time doing that. Appreciate it.
No, it's cool. It's just a couple of those questions, really just kind of shaping it around and help, because we never know. I mean, that could be one stumbling block or one stepping stone for somebody who needs to come away from what do they call analysis paralysis and jump into something. And maybe it's just a relationship, maybe it's a conversation, maybe it's seeing somebody at the water cooler and say, hey, so you're in real estate, right? So we never know, but it was a great conversation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate your time too.
Awesome. We enjoy the rest of your day. My team will be in touch with you, and then that way I'll follow you on Instagram. That way we can do, if you would like, a collaborative post. So when the production comes out, it should be a few weeks. Then it makes it easier for us to boost the post together.
I would love that. Of course.
Perfect. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you again. Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you.
Have a good day.
Have a nice day. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.